Ladies and gentlemen, it is here. Finally, it is September 25th, and Star Citizen Alpha 3.15 is in Evocati PTU. Now, of course, what you're going to listen are rumors, right? Those patch notes were not supposed to be public, but they are out there in the internet, on the internet nevertheless. And so, well, as always, take everything with a grain of salt, but this is what you can see on various Reddit threads and Discord channels. And yes, there is indeed a database reset with long-term persistence being disabled here, meaning that it is a full wipe for all accounts. This was already talked about and confirmed here with these patch notes. Now, of course, they do say that this build is under the NDA, but luckily I am not an Evocati, so I can report on what is available out there on the internet for people who are not really related to the Evocati experience or the Evocati group, right? Anyway, as always, what are the tests in focus? This time we're talking about the personal inventory, healing and actor status, hospitals, the Starlifter Hercules A2, which right now is the only new ship that is in this patch, but we should be expecting more ships like the Crusader ARS and the Redeemer to be in future iterations of 3.15, as well as bombs and Horizon V2. And among these new features here are, of course, the hospitals. Here they do say that these are the additions of unique location hospitals to landing zones and clinics into space stations where players will be able to respawn, heal injuries, and buy medical supplies from these locations. This adds the additional emergency elevator inside landing zone hangars that will transport players directly to the hospitals. This first iteration will have hospitals in Horizon, New Babbage, Grimex, and clinics in Space Station. Players who originally spawned in this first iteration in Area 18 and Lorville will have their default hospitals set to the corresponding orbital stations. Lorville and Area 18 will be getting their hospitals, of course, in 3.16 and 3.17. Now, very interesting here, they say that when we go to a landing zone, when we land, there will be an elevator that transports directly to the hospital. Now, how is this going to be working here? Is this going to be only at the rest stops, which would make sense, or are we going to have an elevator straight from the hangar to the hospital, which would really be weird, because especially when we think of New Babbage or Lorville or any other locations around the verse, right? Those hospitals are like in the city centers, and the spaceports are a little bit further away. So that means that we're gonna have elevators that will travel for tens of kilometers. That doesn't make sense to me here. So I think that this is just something that we're gonna see in the rest stops, because that could be feasible, I guess, but I would be very surprised to see that happening in the landing zones. But I guess we'll see, right? Where it wouldn't be the first time that we'll be surprised by a surprising feature from CIG. Anyway, next, AI unmanned missile defense turrets here. This is the addition of AI controlled defense turrets at space stations and underground facilities in the PU. That means that perhaps, does it mean that when we fire missiles, they will be able to defend themselves? Because it's been very easy to shoot missiles at the turrets. Or does it mean that they are actually going to be sending missiles? Which then would definitely make the approach to underground facilities much more difficult, and definitely would force us to plan our assault on underground facilities when we're assaulting bunkers. And then, if this is the case, because it was already quite hard to attack underground facilities with a single fighter, if this is the case, it's going to be nearly impossible, and that's going to force players who attack underground facilities to land a little bit further away and go to these facilities with a ground vehicle, which is going to bring definitely some usage to those ground vehicles, which, I don't know, are mostly used for racing, I guess, nowadays, right? In terms of gameplay, we do now have the personal inventory tier 0, but the asset manager is V1. And here, they say that with the implementation of personal inventory, players will now physically store weapons, gadgets, consumables, healing items, and more on their person and in vehicle via backpacks, pockets, and containers. This is going to utilize, listen to that, guys, the new iCache for persistence wherever player travel. That's right, iCache, guys, making its way to Star Citizen Alpha 3.15 officially, which is going to be marking the beginning of basically persistence in the verse, right? So hopefully this means that Also, when we're going to have a 30k error, then the game is going to be remembering where we were, so that when we come back exactly where we were with in the ship that we had and with the cargo that was in the ship. In theory, this is the way it is supposed to work. Now, obviously, as I said, I am not an Evocati, so I cannot try, but I will be asking some of my Evocati contacts after they try the game furthermore, and hopefully they will be able to tell me whether or not it is indeed fixing this whole issue that has been plaguing trading since the beginning of Star Citizen of 3.x, right? Anyway, they say that this new system removes the older inventory app from the Mobi class and adds a new local inventory system by pressing I on the keyboard, which is going to be the default keybind. Current landing locations share inventories with their low orbit stations above the planets. That means that if you are on, let's say, Everest Harbor, you are still going to be having access to your inventory on in Lorville, which is going to be down below. Tabs allow navigations between locations, vehicle, external, and personal inventory. Players can navigate between each tab to move items from one inventory to another, with both sides of the screen displaying an inventory container and the list available tables. Note that two of the same tabs cannot be open at the same time, so you cannot have multiple tabs. You're going to have to be choosing your tabs wisely, otherwise, you will not have access to whatever item you want to have access to. When a player places the cursor over an item in their inventory, they will be presented with the information given in shops next to the tooltips on ammo, for example, if you have any remaining bullets or the magazine. Armor and clothing, which is going to be backpacks, torso, and legs, physically have their own inventory container and can be opened by using the inventory system as well, which is the I key. Placing any of these into a location inventory into a container will create a nested inventory, which can be opened via the R and B over the item. This nested inventory will make it so players are able to store more items onto the player and make space. When right-clicking, which is going to be a mouse too, obviously, any item in inventory, a contextual menu will appear presenting available interactions, including functions like split for stacked items. All armor and clothing can now be carried, dropped, placed, and left in the world, currently represented in the environment by carryable boxes. So that's not going to be, that's a little bit cheesy, I think. I think that if you leave something in the verse, you should be able to be seeing the actual item, because who transports so many boxes with that? That is, as they say here, they say currently represented, so probably that's a first iteration, right? I mean, it's tier 0, and hopefully in the future, these are not going to be just boxes, but the actual item, but it's not going to be like that in 3.15. While in this state, they may be interacted with using the interaction system and can be equipped by doing so. Now, they also have the home system here, which is basically going to be your respawn location. And they said that before starting the game and initially spawning, a player must now specify their home location, which is where they will spawn via the front end. Friend options to join parties, spawn at their locations, are disabled until this location has been set. Any item entitled via store purchase, subscriber reward will be added to the home location, as they've been specifying this in a recent episode of Inside Star Citizen. Each starting location, rest stop, and Port Olisar have a corresponding location inventory. If items are left in the location inventory when the player leaves, that's that said location, then the item will remain there and cannot be accessed from the inventory UI until the player returns, which is going to be forcing players to travel from one place to another. Character inventory, which is not exactly the same as home inventory. Here they said that this inventory is no longer restricted to commodities and can contain any type of FPS armor, clothing, weapon, consumable, and one edge carryable, 1 hour. I don't say that provided said item fits. I have no idea what is one edge carryable, but that's what the patch note says. The player character is now disabled at the center of the inventory UI with a controllable camera, which needs to be holding mouse too. That is going to allow orbit movements via the mouse movement, mouse wheel, and mouse controls, and the ability to drag, held, and equip item off the character into an inventory UI container and vice versa from an inventory container onto a valid item port on the character. Items can be dragged and dropped from the inventory container or from the character directly onto the floor. Weapon attachments can be dragged directly onto weaponry that is held or equipped to the character. If a player is downed or killed, the other players are able to loot via the interaction menu and take all the items from the players. When the player dies, their body will become lootable by players for all the items that they had on their location upon their death for 2 hours before despawning. That is huge. That is huge. Before, players were despawning almost instantaneously, right? But now their bodies are going to remain wherever they are for 2 hours. Now, this is something that Chris Roberts did say, that it's going to be difficult to keep, for the database to keep all of the items that you drop, all the corpses forever in the verse, although that's the idea. But it's going to, I mean, imagine all the data and all the millions of players dropping items on the ground, on the floor. If the game had to remember all of these items, those millions and tens of millions of items that are going to be dropped, if they always have to stay forever over the course of several years because no one picks them up, then that is going to be a huge drag on the performance of the game, and that's why they can't allow this to happen. So the first iteration will be just 2 hours before despawning, and I suppose that as time goes on, this is going to be lasting longer. But how long are things going to be staying until they despawn? Well, that remains to be seen, obviously. If they just want an individual item, then they will be able to remove the weapon, armor, container, or the suit or everything. So basically, once you kill a player, whether it's a player like an actual human player or an NPC, because that's also going to be working with NPC, then you'll be able to strip them of whatever they want. Vehicle inventory here. Each ship and ground vehicle with a traversable interior has its own vehicle inventory, which is only accessible while inside the said vehicle. Any player can access their own instance vehicle inventory when inside. When a ship has inventory in it and players self-destruct or have the ship destroyed, a large cargo box will appear that will allow the players to loot the items via the interaction menu. Very interesting here, meaning that if a ship, does it mean that if a ship has cargo, we'll be able to interact with that cargo, or is it just going to be containing what the player owns? Now, next, healing, tier 0 and tier 1 status. We're going to have an entire dedicated video about this because it is very comprehensive here. I'll just be going through the description here. They said that this is a complete overhaul of the healing and actor health systems. These two systems are intrinsically linked for players to determine the effects of damage on an actor and allow themselves and other players to action on those effects. These effects range from minor visual and audio feedback to state changes where player control is removed, to the then death, in the player's case, respawning of a character. Of course, NPCs are not going to respawn, but players are. We'll have a separate video about this because it is extremely extensive here. Next, we'll talk about bombs, which is another feature for Star Citizen Alpha 3.15 here. And they said that the addition of bombing mechanics into Star Citizen allows ships such as the new Starlifter A2 to drop bombs. This system is accessed using the current missile operator mode if your ship is equipped with bombs. While active, it will give players a selection markers by pressing Alt T, which is the default keybind, and it's going to allow them to define an area where they want the bomb to drop. As these bombs drop with gravity and they are not controlled after release, players will get a new AI alignment and drop HUD feature after selecting the target location on the ground that they follow, so that they can get as close to the center as the target area as possible and then drop the bomb. All other behaviors of the mother level bomb will apply there, such as increasing the number of bombs to drop at once, waiting for them to arm, using the same keybind, etc. Initially, only the A2 will have bombs and it will not have any missiles. So this idea of being able to cycle between missiles and bombs here is not going to apply. And of course, they did say that among ships and vehicles, we have the Hercules A2, but also we have the Cure Life medical tool and the Grey Cat multi-tool healing attachment, obviously, for medical gameplay. There is also Horizon Landing V2 here, which is going to be adding the more shops. This is going to include the Crusader Industries showroom, which displays the Hercules Starlifter, the Ares Starfighter, the Mercury Starrunner, as well as Cousin Crow's custom crafts, ship parts shops, and the Providence Surplus for industrial clothing. I suppose that this is a shop for clothing, as they say, right? And Olisar has also been relocated much closer to the planet so that it remains above Horizon. The Gladius now has its gold standard. We've been talking about this as well quite a few times in the last episodes of Inside Star Citizen, which basically allows you to put in some inventory in your ship with separate containers, right? So that's basically what it is. A couple of bug fixes, including some players having repeated 30k errors when joining the PU. This is fixed. They fixed an issue causing Alpha UEC and unequipped Apten to randomly disappear from players' inventories. There should no longer be a color difference between player characters, heads, and bodies. They fixed an issue causing players to sometimes take collisions when entering ships. Asteroid FPS deposits should now be scanned. FPS AI should no longer continue to shoot through other enemies while attacking players. The new dealership shop repairs should no longer be missing collisions. Players should now be able to auto-dock a parasite ship onto the constellation from above, which should cause it to collide it into it. Okay, so this was not the case before there was no collision. Now there is. Multiple player checkpoints should no longer display the same time in arena commander race modes, for those of you who still play that. A couple of client crashes, server crashes, and a backend service timeout fix, as well as several server performance optimizations. We're not going to talk about the current bugs here. This will be for other patch notes videos. You know, guys, that these are some of my favorite videos to make. I just love checking out patch notes and see the progress made with all of these different patches as we go towards the release of the patch. But anyway, guys, you guys know that we have a giveaway this month, as we are giving away, thanks to Dr. Forbin, a lot of things. First, a Mercury Star Runner. All you have to do is to subscribe to this channel, make sure you are in public setting modes, and answer the giveaway related question I'm going to ask right now. And of course, that is, what is going to be your home planet in Star Citizen? I think that I'm going to set it to Horizon, but what about you? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you are a Patreon or a Join Button member, you should have access to my Discord channel, where we have more giveaways, a Crusader Ares Ion, as well as an Origin 85X, thanks to Dr. Forbin and Max Power. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this video. It's a long one here. It's going to be separated into multiple parts because there's a ton of things to be talking about. I'll see you guys later for more content on the channel. This is the Eradicator. Oh, what I said I'll see you guys later. This video is brought to you by the people who support this channel on Patreon and via the join button as well. Supporters of the channel get access to lots of cool perks, such as access to my private Discord, your question answered in the show, you get to know when I'm going to play, and also you get to have a chance to influence the editorial line of the channel. Any help is appreciated, starts at just $1 a month. Thank you very much for watching. This is the Eradicator, and I'll see you guys later.